Hello and welcome to another episode of the Ink Podcast. This is your host, Mr. Trees Ink himself, and I want to thank you guys for tuning in. In today's topic, we're going to be talking about a very important subject, especially in the minority community. We just want to express how we feel about this and how it relates to us. So I wanted to bring a special guest on the show that has a prolific experience with it. Not saying it was a good experience, but she'll be able to tell her side and we'll get a good feel for it. So let's give a warm welcome to Sabriana.
I just want to say thank you for having me on the podcast. It really means a lot to be able to share my story, and hopefully it impacts somebody and empowers somebody to be strong and be able to speak out against the issues that they see in the world.
Okay. So with that being said, what's the thing that's going on right now, especially in the world, is racism. There's multiple types. I know that you tell me a lot that I know of. Racism is basically having hatred, or you don't like somebody because of their race or their ethnicity. Is that right?
Yes.
And can you give us a little more in depth on that?
Yes. Racism is a very historical thing. I feel like a lot of our history, not as like Americans, but as people in general, like when I look at black people and black culture, you have to realize that it's not just African Americans. There is a whole diasporic network of black people. You got Caribbean black people, you have Afro-Latinas, you have European black people. You know, there's so many different forms and like variations of black people. So when you think about racism, most of the time we think about it as Americans. We think about racism here in the United States. But I would like people to know that racism, like, it exists everywhere. It's not just here in the United States. It exists everywhere. And it's historic because that is how our history was brought about. We were these independent nations, you know, very strong in our ways. And you know, white settlers, they came in and they took over our lands and they kept us in bondage for 400 plus years. Now, there were some nations that became more independent faster than others. For example, you had Haiti. Haiti was the first nation to be able to fight against slavery and win successfully thanks to, I believe...
Was it Jean Locke?
No, I believe it was Toussaint.
Oh, yeah.
Toussaint. And the Haitian Revolution. Haiti was also known as Saint Domingue first.
So, are you Haitian or no?
No, I'm not Haitian. I just happen to have a minor in African American studies.
Oh, okay.
Well, I'm pursuing a minor in African American
And where are
studies.
you studying right now?
Currently, I'm at FAU, but I'm planning to attend the highest of the Seven Hills, Florida Agricultural and Mechanical University.
Okay.
Go Rattlers.
If you're a Rattler, comment down below. Me, personally, I'm a Seminole, but, I might change and go be Morehouse man. We'll see what happens. But
You're going to be a Rattler.
I don't know about that. You know what I'm saying? But so I want to ask you a question, right? I want you to be very honest, be very brutally honest, okay?
Mm-hmm.
You have a boat, right, with you, some water, your dog. You only have one spot left for a person that's on a sinking ship. You have a white person and you have a black person. Which person are you choosing and why?
I feel like that's a really vague question.
Very vague.
Because you're telling me to pick somebody based off of their color and not their substance. And I'm not somebody to choose color over substance. Because there could be a ignorant black person and a white person that's intelligent that could help me along my trip. Like, let's say that white person knows how to sail a boat. You know, they have a boating license. They have all this stuff that could be useful to me. I'm going to choose the white person, not because they're white, but because they know what they're doing.
Okay. Great answer. Okay. As far as all of the situations that have been happening in the world, I know you probably heard about the shooting in Texas, the grocery store when the 18-year-old male walked in there and took the lives of 10 people. When we look at that and we feel that not only from a nation standpoint, but just from like that hit home because we're black. We're like, I'm black. So that wasn't me or someone I knew, but that kind of brought not fear, but just shock. Like, wow, that happened. What are your thoughts on that? And how do you think that will affect you, or does it affect you in any way?
For me, I feel like it definitely like really, really affects me. Although I don't have any family members and I didn't lose anyone in that incident. I feel like that whenever there are things that happen in the black community, hate crimes that happen towards us, it affects us all. Why? Because when people do that and when people see that, people that, have those hateful ways, when they see that, that's an example to them that it feels like for them, they're allowed to do those things, right? So if you have all this hate on display, and think about the children that see that, nobody is born with a hateful spirit. A hate is something that is taught. Hate is something that's passed down from generations, and hate stems from ignorance, and hate stems from not being able to love people because you have some kind of issue. There's some kind of disconnect, right? So right. I feel like, although I didn't lose anyone, like I said, but I feel like it affects us all because for me, I know I've had my own experiences as a young African-American woman in the state of Florida, which is in the South. Maybe not, so Southern, really like, modern, but, when people see those things, they feel like, that's okay. And I feel like it really, really bothers me and makes me sick because if you look at our history as African Americans, we haven't progressed anywhere.
We haven't, and it shows. It's really mind-boggling because you would think, oh yeah, the world is changing, the world is getting better, but there'd be moments where, okay, this is still America, this is still reality. Like one of the songs that Childish Gambino put out, This Is America, where he showed a lot of things that were happening inside of America by portraying. Then he had one part where there was this black choir singing, and he was portraying a person that shot them up, and he proceeded to say that this is America. Like, okay, when you think of America, it's supposed to be the land of the free, the home of the brave, and all that stuff like that. But when you look at that, I feel like that wasn't for us. I think we're just living in America, unfortunately, but change is still due to come. And I think that with especially young people, like we have the chance to change that how it's portrayed, how we're treated. We can really make a change. And I feel like with social media, with avenues and ways of having help, and because I think you can change how people would feel or their thoughts by just talking to them like someone that they can sit down to and vent, because most of the time mental health has a huge effect on all of us, and one click, one split of a second, you doing something you don't mean, and you can take lives away or ultimately change everything, which stems back to my thing saying that this is America. People just doing whatever they want to, and I want to feel safe. I want to feel like this is the safest country in the world. But at the same time, if it still feel like 9/11, mind you, I wasn't even born, but just to see all the chaos and how it was, I feel like it still is like that. What do you think?
I feel like 9/11, yes, 9/11 was a horrific event, but we still have issues from our past that we have never addressed. Like, think about now in schools where certain states, they're trying to input critical race theory, right? And that's where essentially people would take Black history and things that offend, history that offends people and, brings out emotional sides of them. They want to remove it from the education.
But it's the truth. You want to remove the truth?
Because it's offensive to some
who?
people. To white people.
To white people. That's what
they don't want to talk about slavery in schools. They don't want to. Most schools. I just graduated high school last year, right? I was class of 2021. Most schools don't address Black history.
I'm sorry, y'all. We had a loud concussion. I don't know if your dad fell in the bathroom. I think he fell in the toilet.
Most schools don't address Black History Month, right?
Yeah.
And I went to a predominantly Black elementary school. And by the time I hit 4th grade, we stopped doing Black History Month celebrations.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So that's alarming.
Yeah.
Very alarming at a predominantly Black elementary school. I feel like the lack of education plays a role in the racism and the hatred that we have. And it starts with the youth. It really does. Because the people that you see committing these crimes are amongst the youth. You don't see baby boomers going and shooting up schools and churches. It's usually younger people. Like, people 30 and below.
Okay.
So I feel like there's definitely an issue with education. That's the main issue. Your education system is horrible. You want to talk about all these things that aren't essential to life and that don't really address the issues going on because you're scared that it's going to, quote unquote, offend people. But the offensive truth needs to be heard.
Okay. So we're having a great discussion. I love your dialogue and how you interpret your answers. We want to see if you wanted to give a piece of a poem or something that we can be left with, something positive. So whatever you need, grass related, call up Christopher at Lawn Cutting Brother, top of the line service, 5-star quality, just a wonderful young man. His link will be in the description. If you want to also have your business page or anything shouted out on the podcast, please feel free to shoot us an email at tradecoop18.com and we will gladly have you sponsored on the podcast.
Okay, so the piece that I chose to share today is titled Crying Over Caskets. Crying Over Caskets is something that I wrote when I was in 8th grade. After my experiences of racism and experiencing that at a young age, it really just shaped my mind as to how it was a coming to Jesus moment. Because I was young and naive and I was like, racism does not exist. Like, that is so gone. Like, that is something my great grandma experienced. Like, my grandma wasn't even experiencing that. Like, it wasn't even that bad. So that's the mindset that I had. And when I went to middle school, I was in for a rude awakening. I was called slurs. People questioned my abilities and all types of things. And I just got a hard piece of the truth. So instead of, channeling out anger, I decided to channel it into art and poetry. And this is something that I wrote, and I would love to share it.
Well, feel free and lady, the floor is yours.
All right, here's the title, Crying Over Caskets. When did the color of my skin become your weapon? My heart, the barrel of your gun. My dignity, your trigger. With my blood and tears as the bullets. You load your gun, and you shoot your shot upon my brothers and sisters. Unarmed, alone, innocent. But in your eyes, he's a hardcore criminal. She's a thief. He has guns and he's dangerous. She's always angry. He's the good-for-nothing father with no father, and she's the menace to your privileged society. He reaches for his ID to deem his innocence, and he pleads for his life. But to you, he's fully locked and loaded. You instantly pull the trigger with the barrel aimed at his chest. It's self-defense, you say, but I say it's several shots fired out of pure immaturity and hatred. Bullets pierce the soul of an innocent man, a father, a son, a brother, a sister, a mother, a daughter, a wife, a friend. One who has never truly lived the African-American dream. This man, this woman, was too young. His body falls, her eyes shut. The bullets penetrate his future and aspirations, and the bullets shatter the future generations. Blood splatters across the asphalt. You panic. You flee the scene and call for backup, all while she lies lifeless on the pavement, fighting death with every numbered breath. With every drop of blood shed, her future drips into the cracks of the streets, leaving nothing but only a tragedy behind. Ambulance arrives, it's too late. Another one for the books, another statistic, another filthy murder in the streets. Families mourn the lives of Sandra, Trayvon, Philando, Alton, Eric, Michael. The list goes on and on. Too many lives stolen by silver badges with clout in an unjust system. Families dressed in black, cold caskets, frozen bodies. It is too late. The daughter heartbroken, forever missing her father. The son set to turn to the streets. The wife missing her husband. The mother set to bury her only son. The casket closes. I can't breathe. This is the last time the daughter sees her father. This is the last memory the boy has of his mother before he's on his own. They are crying over caskets. Can't you hear the screams? Can't you see the tears? Can't you feel their pain? You can't. Because all you see is a weapon ready to harm you. Why is it okay? Why does this keep happening? Where's the justice in our justice system? I ask myself why, and there's never an answer. I'm on bended knee with my Skittles and my hoodie, unarmed, alone, with my right fist and afro held as high as my pride, crying over caskets.
That was fantastic, Mrs. Stallings. We're gonna give a big thanks for you being on the podcast. That was a wonderful speech, and I'm very touched by it, just how you were able to express yourself. And I think that you have extremely a ton of potential and skill, and you should really continue with this, because not only will this be a time for you to gain that exposure, but somebody out there is listening to us, and they're going to take heed or take pieces and apply it to their lives, or it may change their lives, and that's all we want to do, is just change and impact.
Feel free to go to my Instagram at Sabria Ayano, and I have my full story linked there under my videos. When you have a moment, if you would like to listen, feel free to listen. I share my experiences that I had in middle school and in high school, and if you're struggling with the same thing or would like to just talk about the matter, feel free to send me a DM. It was a pleasure, and I really appreciate you having me, and I'm excited to see your growth and your journey on the podcast. And thank you guys for listening.
Thank you guys so much for tuning in to the Ink Podcast with your boy Treasy Ink. Make sure y'all push that like button, share, and subscribe. We currently at 7 subscribers, but by the time this podcast comes out, I would say we should have at least 20. You say at least 20?
At least 20 with the
sexiest
podcaster alive.
With the Sabria Ayana, what is the baddest podcast in the land?
The Ink Podcast.
Yes,
Thank
sir.
you for having your girl.
Period.
Pooh.
Gang.